everyone, it's Alana and welcome back to my channel for another chapter of Sweetbriars Leaving the City. Now today we'll be going into chapter 14, but before we get too far into it and start reading, just want to give you a little reminder: if you have any questions, comments or reviews, feel free to message me on my social medias at Alana Clark Question on Instagram and Facebook, or at Ace_Question on Twitter, and they will be linked below, or you can drop it in the comments below. And without further ado, let's start reading. Sweetbriars Leaving the City, chapter 14. It was the evening before they departed for the Pony Club Championships. Cate shifted around the old-fashioned felt seat, feeling a prickling heat on her legs from the crackling fireplace. They were out for supper at their local pub, the King's Head. During supper, Cate decided to bring up the subject of getting extra lessons with Benji. "Mum, I feel like Odette has improved since I've been getting dressage lessons from Benji, and I've been wondering if I could try some lessons from him for outside the Pony Club," asked Cate nonchalantly. Mum looked surprised, and she placed a drink on the table before rubbing her eyes. Alex and Dad also looked surprised and turned to her to see what she would say. It wasn't a secret that Cate had been lukewarm about Benji's teaching. Mum's face broke into a smile and she said, "Of course you can try some lessons with Benji. You do realise, though," she continued gently, "that you don't need to know that much dressage for showing classes." "Yes, I know, Mum, but since he started teaching me, Odette feels wonderful. It feels like a breakthrough. You saw her at the opening day. She was incredible floating around the arena." "I can't deny that. Overall, I think Benji has been good for you, Cate, but don't be surprised if you catch the dressage bug," Mum said, laughing. "Well, Mum, that's what happens when you buy me a horse like Odette," said Cate earnestly. It was settled, and Cate was excited. Her curiosity had been building about dressage, and she was about to perform her first dressage test, although she had to admit she still felt apprehensive about it. Kate's mum started the engine of the trusty old green lorry. They were taking 5 horses to the championships: Odette, Fritz, Spot, Nancy and Bliss. Mum wanted to take Bliss along for the weekend to give him the experience of leaving Sweetbriars. The venue was a 40-minute drive away, and Alex and the girls would sleep in the lorry overnight, while the horses would sleep in temporary stables erected especially for the event. Amelia, the Avonlea Park owner, had agreed to let Tabby ride Nancy in the championship, though Cate suspected she was only doing it because it would be good publicity for Avonlea Park. Avonlea Park turned out to be starkly different to Sweetbriars. The fences were in disrepair, and some of the rickety stables had broken doors. The arena was small and surrounded with traffic cones, and the tiny paddocks had electric fencing that sagged between rotting wooden posts. Fortunately, they didn't have to spend much time there. Nancy hopped on the unfamiliar lorry like a pro, and off they went again. As they got closer to the championship venue, the road started to fill with trailers and horse lorries, all headed in the same direction. The grounds were decorated with streamers and balloons hanging from the fences and poles. There was a large grassy space surrounded by a simple wooden fence, and to one side a wooden clubhouse and indoor arena. At the back of the Pony Club there were outdoor dressage arenas and a large show jumping arena. There was also a cross-country course that followed the perimeter of the Pony Club, with large wooden fences and smaller jump options beside them. A man in a bright yellow vest directed them to an area where lorries could park. It was full of large bare trees, and the ground was covered in brown and gold leaves that had fallen recently. As they parked, they could see a large, sleek silver lorry turning into the parking area. There was an elegant man behind the steering wheel. Sitting beside him were Genevieve and Jilly, peering over the dashboard. As they parked their lorry and jumped out, Genevieve waved stiffly at Cate and her friends. They waved back and focused on unloading the horses. Cate had taken Tabby's advice to heart to ignore Genevieve, but she also knew it was important to be polite. Once the horses were safely in the stables with hay, Mum and Dad returned to Sweetbriars to feed the other horses. Mans and some other parents would be camping on the Pony Club grounds in case of any emergencies. They unpacked and polished their tack and boots until they were clean and shiny before feeding the horses and heading to the clubhouse for supper. Large tables were allocated for members of each branch, and Cate, Alex, Violet and Tabby joined their friends. The room was bursting with loud chatter and people were full of cheer. The coordinator of the Pony Club hosting the championships welcomed each table individually. People clapped and cheered. A hearty British dinner was served, including bangers and mash and fish and chips. For dessert, they had a choice of apple pie or Eton mess. Cate felt nervous, with butterflies in her stomach, and she couldn't eat very much. After supper, the girls were lying together in the double bed in the lorry. They were huddled over an iPad, watching people perform the dressage tests Cate and Tabby would ride on Sunday. The girls discussed the horse and rider combinations and what they did, or didn't do well, whilst eating the chocolate orange balls Violet had brought along. Violet had come to the championships very well prepared. Her bag seemed to be packed with extra care and her clothes looked like new, crisp and perfectly folded. Her wash bag had numerous compartments and her toiletries were clearly labelled. Best of all, she had brought all types of chocolates. Alex was lying on the top bunk with his earphones on, watching a show jumping championship taking place somewhere in Europe, and shushed them a couple of times. They went to sleep around 11 o'clock, and the next morning at 5:30 the alarm sounded on all 4 of their phones simultaneously. There was no hiding from that. They had to plait the horses' manes into rosettes, which took some time. They ate breakfast in the lorries, and by 8 o'clock Cate and Tabby were ready. Horses, boots, and tack gleamed as they walked Odette and Nancy to the dressage to music competition area. For the pas de deux competition, Cate and Tabby had chosen a combination of music from Michael Jackson, and it matched their routine well. They managed to synchronise medium trots across the diagonal, trot at the centre line, and leg yield to the outside at the same time, and finish with simultaneous, balanced square halts. In the medium trot, Cate made sure to half halt across the diagonal instead of letting Odette rush, and it helped to get greater extension in her front legs and to be in time with Nancy, who didn't have such big paces. When they'd finished, they could see the judges writing their marks down. Parents and friends, including Violet, began to clap and cheer for them from the fence line. Tabby and Cate beamed and gave each other high fives. They patted their horses and told them how good they were. Then they joined their parents and walked back to the lorry to feed the horses before the afternoon competition. "What a tremendous group, and you two stole the show. I am so proud of you," said Dad as he patted Odette's neck. "You both looked wonderful. It was amazing to watch," added Violet. "Absolutely marvellous," agreed Mum. Cate and Tabby were thrilled and thanked them, but the results wouldn't be announced until later in the day. Once Odette and Nancy were back in their stables, the 2 girls walked to the jumping area where Violet would be competing. Violet confidently trotted and cantered Spot around the warm-up arena, over cross-rails, uprights and small oxes. Despite the area being full of ponies and riders, Spot was focused and relaxed, and Violet was clearly enjoying herself. When Spot was warmed up, Violet dismounted to walk the course. Tabby held Spot while Cate and Violet assessed the course together. The jumps were not too high and were decorated like a forest scene. As Violet had been taught to do at Pony Club, she counted the steps in between fences to measure the stride Spot would need to take. She wasn't fazed by most of the course, just a little nervous about the water jump. Violet hopped back on Spot and cantered him over 2 more fences before her name was called. She entered the show jumping ring and started trotting around the jumps, letting Spot look at them. Once the bell rang, they cantered towards the first jump with the red flag on their right. Spot cleared it, then continued to bounce his way around the course. The only jump he hesitated on was the water, as Violet had suspected he would. She dug her heels into Spot's sides and clicked her tongue. The hesitant gelding leaped over the water fence, clearing it easily. Violet had a clear round. This meant that she would participate in the jump-off when the other riders were finished. "Well done, that was excellent," Cate told her as she left the arena. Returned to the fence line and Cate gave Spot a polo mint. "That was so much fun," said Violet. Violet's parents looked as proud as could be, and she leant over to hug them both. "Congratulations, Violet, what a great round," said Cate's mum. 5 riders participated in the jump-off, including Ariel from school. She went before Violet and took 2 rails down. This didn't rattle Violet, though. She hadn't thought she would be doing a show jumping course only a few months into owning Spot, and was over the moon just to have made it so far in so little time. Violet entered the ring and cantered Spot towards the first fence, which was a simple upright. It was followed by another simple fence, a double combination, and then the water, with a couple of tricky turns to make in between. The jump-off was judged by both time and the number of rails knocked down. Violet cleared all the jumps until she reached the water. Spot seemed to hesitate again, slowing down to a trot and running out to the left. Violet turned him to the right, kicked him, and he jumped the jump crookedly from a trot, taking down the top rail. Violet refocused him, and they cantered over the last 2 jumps faultlessly to finish. Spectators clapped her from the edge of the arena as Violet walked Spot and patted him, pleased with the result. "Well done, Violet! Excellent work to keep him going over that water jump," said Mum. "Thanks ever so much. Yes, I thought he would go over it no problem that time, but I kicked him a bit too late," said Violet. She shrugged, but grinned too. "Well, he went over it, that's the main thing," said Alex, who had also watched Violet's jump-off. They watched 2 more horses go round, one achieving a clear round, but the other having 2 rails. Then the results were called over the loudspeaker. Violet came in 3rd place. She had to go back into the ring for the prize-giving ceremony. She was thrilled, her first ever rosette. Next, Mum coached Alex and Fritz in the warm-up, guiding them through double fences with a large upright and a wide oxer. Alex was competing in the highest show jumping level for Pony Club, and they were all excited to watch him. Then Alex and Mum watched the course, debating potential difficulties and how best to approach them. Toby arrived to spectate his first show jumping competition. He was in awe at Alex's bravery as he took the show jumping course with its big obstacles. "No way would I hop on something that big, with a mind of its own, and ask it to jump over these fences. No way," said Toby, shaking his head, his eyes wide. "Who knows, maybe one day I'll do it," said Violet breezily, as she flicked her hair, spurred on by her success. Tabby and Cate laughed, and Tabby said, "Why not? It's great to have hopes and dreams." "Exactly, Tabster," replied Violet, laughing. Violet had given Tabby her new nickname at the Cream Cakes Cafe recently, and they all found it funny. Alex began the course, and Fritz jumped with energy to finish clear and go on to the jump-off. In the jump-off, the lines were tight. Alex and Fritz jumped the fences more carefully, and the gentle giant slowed down and sped up where needed. They unexpectedly took a rail at the last fence, but finished in the quickest time, securing second place. The rider who took first place was the son of a top British show jumper, and Alex was delighted to finish second only to him. Cate and Tabby went to the clubhouse to receive their Pas de Deux results. When they reached the wall where the results were written, they could see Genevieve and Jilly scrutinising the notice board. They barely smiled at Cate and Tabby before marching into the clubhouse cafe. Cate and Tabby searched for their names and were thrilled. They came second. Genevieve and Jilly's name were also on the list, at the bottom, as they had come second last. For a moment Cate was surprised they did so badly, but she was mostly delighted that she and Tabby had done so well. They hugged each other and jumped up and down enthusiastically. "Wow, who would have thought Nancy and Odette could do so well in the Pas de Deux?" cried Cate. "They seemed like such an unlikely pair." "I know," remarked Tabby. "They were terrific." At that moment, Kate's mum came up behind them. When she saw the results, she congratulated them both, then said she was going to the cafe and afterwards would give Tabby a lesson on Bliss, since most of the competitions were finished for the day. Cate helped Tabby prepare Bliss, and they met Mum in the empty arena as agreed. Bliss was excited. He passaged his way around, and Cate thought Tabby did a good job of sitting still and staying calm. Once Bliss was warmed up, he was focused and obedient as Mum directed the pair through their paces. Afterwards at the lorry, Tabby tied Bliss to a piece of string attached to the door, while she retrieved a blanket to put over him. Suddenly, a loose balloon came blowing towards Bliss. He pulled back, breaking the string, and bolted. The bay yelled and galloped wildly up the path towards the clubhouse, his eyes flashing, terrified. Kate's mum was coming out of the bathroom, and her face went ashen to see Bliss galloping wildly with poor Tabby running hopelessly behind him, calling his name. A bunch of balloons on his right caught his eye, and he slowed down, then leaped to the left, brushing his foreleg on the fence. He came to a stop when the path ended at the clubhouse, and people were standing around him, waving their arms at him to stop. When Tabby reached Bliss, blood was dripping from his leg. Mans was there and took control, along with Mum, who had joined the scene. They inspected Bliss's leg, pulling the exercise boot up to reveal the damage. He had taken the skin off above his fetlock, and a flap of it sagged over the wound. Mum wrapped the wound with a bandage Mans had given her to stem the flow of blood. Cate had seen what had happened from Odette's stable and raced to the scene with Bliss's blanket. Tabby looked crestfallen, and Cate hugged her shoulder sympathetically before putting the fleece blanket on Bliss. He felt ice-cold despite his neck being covered with a foamy sweat. Mans went to find the vet, who was at the championships for the whole weekend. He arrived quickly with his car and removed the bandage to look at the wound. More blood trickled out of it, but not like before, and Julian the vet congratulated Kate's mum for applying the bandage quickly. After examining Bliss's fetlock, the vet declared there was no damage to the tendon or joint, and the most important thing was to keep the wound clean so it wouldn't get infected and could heal well. He said it could be challenging as the wound was in an area where there was a lot of movement, and therefore Bliss would need to go on stable rest for at least 1 month. He gave Bliss a tetanus shot and a local anaesthetic, then carefully sewed the wound together. Bliss walked tentatively as Tabby led him back to his stable. Once safely inside, he seemed content and munched through a bucket of feed. Tabby did not leave his side. Violet joined them in the stable, bringing Ferrero chocolates to try to cheer Tabby up. But it was obvious Tabby needed more than chocolate to make her feel better. Finally, they managed to convince Tabby to leave Bliss so they could prepare for their fancy dress outfits for the next day. The parade would take place after the final prize-giving ceremony in the indoor arena. This year's theme was From the Sea, inspired by the nearby Atlantic Ocean. The girls would go as mermaids and the horses would be seahorses. They'd bought wigs with green flowing hair that they put over their helmets and sparkly bodices with long sleeves. They needed to glue silver glitter to their jumpers and spray the horses' manes and tails green. The look would be completed by silver saddlecloths. As they sat on the bed in the lorry, gluing glitter to their jumpers, Tabby stated flatly, "I don't even want to go." "Come on, Tabby, it will be fun," coaxed both Cate and Violet. Kate's mum entered the lorry and her voice surprised them as she leant against the bunk beds. "Bliss is fine and knows how much you care about him," she said gently to Tabby. Tabby sighed and tears pooled in her eyes. "I'm so dreadfully sorry, Sarah. I should have never tied a young horse to a piece of string," Tabby said, full of remorse. "Don't worry," Mum said kindly. "It could happen to any of us, and how were you to know there would be a loose balloon? It could have been worse if he hadn't been tied to the string. If he hadn't been able to get away, he really would have panicked and maybe caused even more damage to himself." Mum sat on the edge of the bed and held Tabby's hand and went on to say, "Accidents like this make us more careful, and I know this is your first time handling a young horse." Tabby managed to smile and found her voice. "Thank you for being so understanding." Over supper, Tabby admitted to Cate and Violet that she was still worried about Bliss, despite the vet saying he should be okay, but she was so thankful that Kate's mum wasn't blaming her. Cate and Violet reminded Tabby that the vet was an expert, and she should believe him. And that is all from Ella and I today. I really hope you enjoyed chapter 14. I know I really did. Before you go, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that notification bell so you know when chapter 15 is going to be coming out. And until chapter 15, guys, it's goodbye!